Anna Joy and I am a senior keeper on the hoof stock section here at London Zoo. I'm going to be talking to you about our training that we have in place for our Red River hogs, the importance of the antecedent arrangement that we have, how we use different training techniques to replace the need for anaesthesia, and the importance of, especially with this group, our ability to separate them to train them, and also about the use of tactile reinforcement for our Babirusa group as well that we have. So yeah, thank you.
The first thing we trained our Red River hogs to do was recall training, and we did this as a group recall, and it was done in their inside dens not long after they first arrived, before they had access to their paddocks. In the images below, you can see two of their inside dens. There was a third one not shown, and having this ability to recall them as a group meant that we were able to get in and actually clean some of the dens. We began training this by introducing the sound of a bell every time we fed them, and slowly we were able to extend the duration between ringing the bell and presenting the food to allow them the time to acknowledge the audio cue and make their way to the location of it before being rewarded with their food. This meant that when they did have access to their outside paddocks after the first few weeks, we were able to recall them between the two paddocks as well, and also recall them from inside to outside, aiding in the husbandry and the daily routine. This is a video showing the recall in action in their paddocks outside. As you can hear, we've got the bell ringing and the hogs responding from the other side of the paddock and making their way towards the sound of the bell where they are rewarded. Seeing as we have 7 Red River hogs, we knew that it would be really important to have the ability to individually isolate them, to focus any training done individually on each animal. This chute setup that we had was key to being able to do this, and it meant that we could move the pigs from one show den into a different den through the chute, therefore isolating them in the middle bit, enabling us to do any individual training in this area. As you can see in the video, Ava was not too sure about it initially. I think this was one of the first times that she went through the chute, but they quickly settled into the routine, and this individual area is now one of their favourite places to be. The photo on the left better shows the setup of our chute in the service area, and in it you can actually see where we've added a temporary crush in place as well. Not long after the Red River hogs arrived, we had to get them ready for their first round of vaccinations. So we obviously wanted to do this via hand injection rather than having to dart them. This wooden crush we made temporarily just to get the training behaviour in place, and the idea was that not only were they able to be isolated within the chute area, but we were able to get close enough to the mesh that we could hand inject them through the mesh panel. You can see this training happening on the right hand side in this video. You can see we've got a pig that has been isolated within the chute area. He's gone within the crush region between the crush and the mesh, and then once that training is finished, we're able to then move them through into a different den to make sure that the ones that we have finished training with are all separate from the ones that still need to have their training done. Once they were used to being in the chute area and between the crush, we were able to get them used to, as you can see in this video, the idea of being poked at the bottom. So we started off using just a stick with this, and there's only one person involved in the training at this stage, but ultimately we did progress this on, which you'll see in the following video. So there are a few things that we've done slightly differently, as you can see in this video. We've got a new crush in place made of the same scaffolding and mesh material as the rest of the chute. We found that the pigs felt a lot more comfortable in it because we're assuming it was a lot less enclosed for them. We've also introduced a second person, who in this instance is Jo, our vet nurse, who was the one doing the actual vaccinations. So you can see the group coming through one at a time, and initially we had quite a set order to the group, but we quickly realized that depending on what's going on with the group dynamics on any given day, they themselves kind of set themselves up in a different order. So we kind of just took our lead off the actual animals and let them kind of choose who wanted to go when in the order. And depending on how they were feeling that day and how the hierarchy was, they were kind of very able to kind of come in one at a time, as you can see, quite comfortably, and we were able to target them through, and then we could close the chute off to isolate them, and then we were able to set them up by targeting them initially and getting them in the right position, and then Joe was able to inject. We also noticed that they would display this sit down behavior, which wasn't an intentional thing on our behalf, but actually was really handy. And we realized that if we began targeting them in certain places, they would naturally sit down, which made the injection side of things a lot easier. For their first vaccinations, we had to do 2 separate injections with a 4-week period in between, and we actually managed to hand inject successfully all 7 of the animals the first time round, and unfortunately the time frame between didn't seem to be quite enough time for some of the individuals to kind of recover from the first load of injections. And the second time round we managed to inject 5 and unfortunately had to dart 2 of them, but given the entire time frame was only over a couple of weeks, I think it was about 4 weeks or so that we've been training in the lead up to this for the hand injections, so we were quite pleased with that result. This was the second round of vaccinations taking place a year after the first. And by this point, the behaviour was definitely an established behaviour with the group already, which actually worked in our favour because not long before the vaccinations took place, we had a breakdown in the group. And because it was already a trained behaviour, and we hadn't been very strict with the order of the pigs, we were able to kind of let them decide who was going to go when, and it meant that everyone kind of knew what they were supposed to be doing, and it was just kind of up to them to see who was comfortable going in which order. You might also have noticed that we had a little chute that we managed to cut into the mesh, which gave us better accessibility to the reds as well, which going forward also benefited a lot of other training behaviours, such as the one that I will explain next. One of the other benefits that we quickly figured out with having the antecedent arrangement that we had in the Red River Hogs was our dominant male Red River Hog, Pedro, at some points done something to his toe, which causes his toenail to grow at an upwards curved kind of angle. And when it gets too long, it puts pressure on his neighboring toenail, causing him some discomfort. And you can actually see in the left-hand image right at the base, there's a little crack that had started to develop. And we were concerned that this was going to track up into his foot, causing him some pain. So initially we needed to do a general anesthesia on him just to kind of file that toenail down and just check that nothing was wrong with the foot. But since then, through trained behavior, we've basically been able to train him to have pedicures. So we're able to file the toe down ourselves and have, through that behavior, have managed to remove the need for doing any kind of anesthesia on him. You can see in this video the process that we go through. It's the same setup, so we get him to come into the chute and he's in the crush area, and through the hatch we're able to file that nail down with Dremel, which we've managed to kind of get him used to the sound of the Dremel, and therefore we introduced a foot command for him, and so he knows that he's targeted, and when he hears the foot command we're going to do some dremeling on his toenail and help keep that nail nice and short. So in the image on the left, you can see where we've successfully managed to file down the curved pointy bit of his toenail so that it no longer puts pressure on that inside toenail. In the video, you can see this happening in action. He's more than happy to do this, and it's something that he's so trained in now that he can't wait for it, and we do it as often as we want, or as even if we don't train for a week or two, he is more than happy to come through, and it's an established behavior with him now. The ability that we have to do this, also the main focus point of this is that initially he had a GA having to deal with this issue with his toes, and going forward now we've removed the need for that anesthesia to take place in order to maintain it. It's just something that we can do on a daily, weekly, whenever we have the free time to do the training with him. We can keep a track of this, and we're able to get right in there and get it underneath and make sure that the toe is being shaped appropriately. We were also lucky to get 2 Babirusa into the zoo not long ago, and they are housed in the same area as our Red River Hogs. And it was really interesting starting a training program with these guys and just seeing all the differences between not only the Babirusa and the Red River Hogs, but also between our male and female Babirusa. So in this video, this is Booty, he's our male. And we established fairly quickly that when we had food involved in training as a reinforcement, he was really struggling to kind of focus on what we were asking him to do and would get very distracted by the food. So with him, we ended up using that tactile reinforcement in the training sessions with him, just because that kept him nice and calm, and we were able to kind of get him where we needed to go by using a hand target and rewarding with scratches. With our female, we still use the food reinforcements because that keeps her nice and focused, but with Booty, the tactile reinforcement worked a lot better in the whole process. And you can also see the setup that we have here. It's not on the same level as we were lucky enough to get for our Red River Hogs for the shoot area, but we were able to just use some breeze blocks that we had around and create a raceway with them for him to go through. And it's really important to kind of use what you've got to create an environment that enables the training and enables the ability to get the best results out of the animals. And in the instance of all the training that we did with the Red River Hogs as well as the Babirusa, after they'd had their injections or after their feet had been dremelled down or whatever it was that we were training with them, every single time they all came back into the shoot area on the same day that these things were trained. So with Booty, for example, in this video, he had been training for most of the day with this because we were having some difficulty actually piercing his skin because it was so thick. So by the time we actually got the injection in, he'd been training that same routine and being poked with the needle a fair few times. And despite that slight discomfort for him, he was still more than happy to get involved in the training that we were doing for him. So this is early days for our training with the Babirusa. So watch this space and we will keep you updated.